The galactic high chamber hummed with the low-frequency vibrations of 1,000 species, their holographic forms flickering in the dim light. Chancellor 𝙎𝙬𝙤𝙀 of the 𝙎𝙬𝙤𝙀 Dominion adjusted his biosuit's translator and let out a dismissive chitter. Asterisk, another petition from the humans? Asterisk, his mandibles clicked in amusement. Asterisk, what do they want this time? More trade rights? Another plea for protection? Asterisk. A data slate slid across the neural interface, displaying Earth's latest transmission. Ambassador Krell of the Voss Empire snorted, a wet, gurgling sound. Asterisk, they're still using primitive radio waves. Adorable. They haven't even mastered quantum entanglement comms. Asterisk. Laughter rippled through the council. The humans had been ignored for decades, a young, fractured species clinging to their toxic little world. Their first FTL ships were slow, their weapons crude. When they had asked for a seat at the table, the response had been unanimous. Come back in a millennium. Then the reports came in. A mining outpost near Sirius went dark. Then a patrol fleet near Proxima Centauri vanished without distress signals. The Council spies finally pieced together the truth. The humans hadn't been begging. They'd been warning. You misunderstand them, hissed Scholar Yvries, her frills flushing crimson. Asterisk, they do not plead. They asterisk declare. Asterisk, and we did not listen. Asterisk. The chamber's screens flickered. A single message, broadcast on every frequency, in every language, pulsed across the galaxy. You should have negotiated. Silence. Then, panic. The first scout drones died before they could transmit visuals. One moment, they were scanning the void at the edge of the Sol System's Oort cloud. The next, static. The Galactic Defense Fleet mobilized within hours. Admiral 𝙎𝙬𝙤 of the Corinthian Armada clenched his talons around the command rail as the tactical display lit up with warnings. What in the abyss is that? The thing emerging from the jump point wasn't a ship. It was a monster. 15 kilometers of blackened alloy, jagged like a blade torn from a god's grip. Its hull absorbed scans, giving back nothing but distorted echoes. Energy signatures spiked off the charts, readings that shouldn't exist outside of a dying star. 𝙎𝙬𝙤's second-in-command, Subcommander 𝙎𝙬𝙤, hissed. Asterisk, their engineers swore FTL that size was impossible. The power drain alone would. Asterisk. The human battleship fired. No plasma. No kinetics. Just a ripple in space itself, a distortion that swallowed 3 Corinthian cruisers before they could scream. The wreckage didn't explode, it unfolded, metal and flesh unraveling like thread from a spool. Panic erupted across the fleet. Emergency transmissions shrieked through the comms. Asterisk, shields offline. Asterisk. Asterisk, weapons non-responsive. Asterisk. Asterisk, it's hacking our systems mid-battle. How? Asterisk. 𝙎𝙬𝙤 watched, frozen, as the human vessel carved through his fleet like a scythe through wheat. No boarding parties. No demands. Just annihilation, methodical and silent. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the battleship stopped. A single transmission pulsed across every frequency, raw and unfiltered, no translation needed. This is Earth's reply. The Corinthian Armada's last recorded image was the battleship's engines flaring to life, its trajectory locked onto the heart of the galactic core. 𝙎𝙬𝙤 had just enough time to realize the truth. This wasn't a war. It was an execution. Zenther Prime had stood for 10,000 cycles. The crown jewel of the Voss Empire, its orbital rings glittered with the accumulated wealth of conquests, its defense grids capable of reducing entire fleets to molten slag before they breached the atmosphere. It fell in 17 minutes. The Terra's wrath didn't bother with siege tactics. It didn't need to. First, the planetary shields flickered, then collapsed, not from bombardment, but from something worse. The human battleship pulsed once, a deep, resonant thrum that sent seismic ripples through the atmosphere. Every active power grid on the planet surged, then failed. Cities plunged into darkness. Defense cannons powered down mid-volley. The Voss Emperor's broadcast tower, mid-sermon, cut to static. Then the wrath descended. Not into orbit. Not even into the upper atmosphere. It tore through the sky like a meteor, its hull glowing white-hot, and came to a dead stop 5 kilometers above the Imperial Palace. The sheer gravitational distortion shattered every reinforced window in the capital. The Emperor's personal guard, genetically enhanced and clad in armor that could withstand plasma fire, dropped to their knees, their organs liquefying from the pressure. No demands were made. No terms offered. The battleship's ventral array opened. For the first time in recorded history, the 𝙎𝙘𝙤𝙤 Empire, the species that had glassed worlds for refusing tribute, that had bred warrior castes to eat their enemies alive, screamed. It wasn't a weapon that struck. It was an absence. A perfect sphere of void space, half a kilometer wide, manifesting silently in the heart of the palace complex. One moment, the center of imperial power stood gleaming in the sun. The next, it was simply gone, replaced by a crater so smooth it looked polished. No debris. No shockwave. Just deletion. The wrath lingered just long enough for the survivors to understand. Then it turned, slow and deliberate, toward the next system on its path. By the time the galactic emergency channels lit up with panicked pleas, 3 more fortress worlds had already vanished from the star maps. The message was no longer implicit. Humanity wasn't conquering. It was erasing. The last surviving members of the Galactic High Council gathered in the ruins of the old 𝙎𝙘𝙤𝙤 bunker, their once pristine robes now stained with dust and fear. The air recyclers wheezed like dying animals. Outside, the sky burned with the light of 100 emergency beacons, distress signals from races that had ruled the stars for millennia, now begging for salvation from a species they dismissed as insects. The human transmission came through on every channel, uncompressed and raw. No grand speeches. No triumphant proclamations. Just 5 words. Disarm. Submit. Or be removed. Silence followed. Not the silence of defiance. The silence of a predator waiting for its prey to stop twitching. One by one, the great empires complied. The Corinthians deactivated their war fleets first, their admiralty transmitting surrender codes before the Terra's wrath even entered their system. The 𝙎, their imperial line extinguished, scuttled their orbital platforms with their own hands. Even the 𝙎𝙤𝙤, who had once glassed entire worlds for sport, lowered their shields and powered down their weapons, their chancellor's final order echoing across their networks. Do not give them a reason. Then came the truth. As the last battlecruisers stood down, Earth's archives unlocked. The data spilled across the galactic networks like blood in water. Blueprints, schematics, deployment records. The Terra's wrath wasn't unique. It wasn't even special. 11 more slept in drydock around Pluto. 23 additional hulls were already under construction in the asteroid belt. And the weapon that had erased 𝙎𝙤𝙤 Prime? A prototype. The galaxy had assumed humanity was weak because they asked before taking. Because they built instead of conquering. Because they'd rather talk than fight. They were wrong. Humanity hadn't been pleading for a seat at the table. They'd been giving the galaxy one last chance to avoid being under it. The final transmission came as the Wrath departed the core systems, its engines flaring like a dying star. The lesson is learned. No gloating. No threats. Just a fact. And for the first time in galactic history, every surviving species understood the true meaning of fear. Not of death. Not of war. But of what happens when the kindest species in the cosmos finally decides to stop being kind. The silence after the storm was heavier than the war itself. Galactic reconstruction began not with celebration, but with trembling hands and stolen glances toward the Sol system. The humans did not occupy. They did not pillage. They simply watched. Their observation drones appeared in every system, hovering at the edges of sovereign space like ghosts. No one dared touch them. On the ruined world of Krellis, 4, a former slave species tore down the statues of their 𝙎 overlords. No reprisal came. When the scavengers of the Tarkin Belt tried looting a decommissioned 𝙎𝙤𝙤 dreadnought, the ship's reactors mysteriously went critical 30 seconds later. No warning. No explanation. The message was clear. The rules have changed. Human diplomats arrived on neutral stations, not in warships, but unarmed shuttles. They spoke softly. They offered trade agreements, cultural exchanges, mutual defense pacts. Their terms were fair. More than fair. That was what terrified the galaxy most. The Corinthian Admiralty, reviewing battle footage from the Terra's Wrath, discovered something their initial panic had missed. The human battleship had never once targeted escape pods. Even at the height of its rampage, lifeboats had been spared. Not by accident. By design. A 𝙎𝙘𝙤𝙤 historian, poring over ancient human texts recovered from pre-FTL Earth, found a passage that made her exoskeleton go cold. Asterisk, speak softly and carry a big stick. Asterisk. The galaxy finally understood. Humanity's mercy wasn't weakness. Their patience wasn't fear. And their forgiveness, that was the most terrifying weapon of all. Because now, when human ambassadors smiled and said, "Let's talk," the entire galaxy listened. Not out of respect, but because they'd seen what happened when humanity stopped talking. The Terra's Wrath never left Sol System again. It didn't need to. Its shadow stretched across the stars anyway. Century passed. The Galactic Archives now listed the human conflict under historical corrections rather than wars. Statues of human diplomats stood where monuments to old empires had crumbled. Children learned about the Terra's Wrath in school, not as a terror, but as a turning point. The day the galaxy grew up. On the edge of former Voss space, a trading vessel from Earth docked at Cowered Station. Its hull bore no weapons, its crew no armor. They carried agricultural tech instead of arms, medical supplies instead of munitions. The station overseer, a grizzled Tarkin veteran of the old wars, watched them unload with narrowed eyes. "You could have taken all this," he muttered to the human captain. "Why give it?" The human didn't smile, didn't frown, just handed over a data slate with crop rotation algorithms. Because no one ever built anything worth keeping at gunpoint. The Tarkin stared, then laughed, then wept. Meanwhile, in the Sol System's Oort cloud, the Terra's Wrath floated in drydock beside its 11 sisters. Their reactors cold, their weapon systems dormant, but not disarmed. Never disarmed. A single technician ran diagnostics on the primary black hole array. Routine maintenance. Nothing more. On his workstation, a sticky note in fading ink read, Asterisk, just in case. Asterisk. The galaxy slept easier knowing humanity watched over them. But never too deeply. And never, ever forgetting what happened when they'd assumed kindness meant weakness. The lesson held. The peace remained. And the wrath waited. Silent. Patient. Unneeded. For now. The 𝙎𝙘𝙤𝙤 Admiral's holographic sneer flickered above the council chamber, his mandibles clacking in derision. "You bring this before the Galactic Concord? A human warship." The projection zoomed in on the blocky, angular silhouette of the UNSS Titan, dwarfed by the sleek organic curves of the Dominion's dreadnoughts. Laughter rippled through the assembled delegates, Vorn, Kesari, even the usually stoic Drith. Only the human envoy, Ambassador Hale, stood unmoved. "According to your own laws," Hale said, voice calm, "any species achieving independent FTL is granted a seat at this table." Independent. The 𝙎𝙘𝙤𝙤 Admiral pulsed violet with amusement. "Your engines are reverse-engineered from a Kesari freighter wreck. Your weapons, patched together from scrap. This Titan of yours is a funeral pyre waiting for a spark." Hale's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Then you won't mind testing it." The Titan's bridge hummed with tension. Captain Elias Vance watched the tactical display as the 𝙎𝙘𝙤 cruiser Dongfang lazily circled them, its plasma lances glowing mockingly. "They're hailing us," Comms Officer Ruiz muttered. The Admiral's face filled the screen, mandibles spread in a predator's grin. "Human. Let us educate you on real warfare. A single volley, if your ship survives, will reconsider your petition." Vance leaned back. "Rules of engagement." "None." The feed cut. Alarms screamed as the Dongfang fired. Plasma bolts ripped toward the Titan, then splashed harmlessly against its hull. The bridge crew braced for impact that never came. "Armor integrity?" Vance asked. Engineer Koval grinned, fingers flying over diagnostics. "Adaptive lattice absorbed 98%. They're shooting exactly how we predicted." Vance nodded. The aliens never considered that humanity's scavenged tech wasn't copied, it was improved. The 𝙎𝙘𝙤𝙤 fought with honor, with rules. Humans had spent centuries perfecting how to break them. The Dongfang fired again. And again. The Titan shuddered but held. "Return fire?" Weapons Officer Garza asked, fingers hovering. Vance shook his head. "Let them waste their shots." On the view screen, the 𝙎𝙬𝙤𝙤 Admiral's smugness faltered. His cruiser's energy reserves dwindled, its attacks growing sporadic. The Titan hadn't even raised its shields. Finally, the Dongfang broke off, engines flaring in retreat. The Admiral's final transmission crackled with static. "A respectable showing, human. We'll meet again." Vance exhaled. The first move was over. The galaxy thought this was a trial. Humanity knew it was a trap. The 𝙎𝙬𝙤𝙤 Armada emerged from warp in perfect formation, their flagship 𝙎𝙬𝙤𝙀's blackened hull still scarred from their last encounter. This time, they brought friends. 3 Vorn heavy cruisers slid into flanking positions, their gravity cannons humming with restrained power. Admiral Corvash's face filled the Titaness main screen, his 4 eyes narrowed in cold amusement. "You had won victory, human. Do not mistake luck for strength." Captain Vance didn't bother standing. "You brought the whole neighborhood this time." "Should I be flattered?" Corvash's frills flushed crimson. "The Concord has ruled your species a destabilizing element. Your ship will be dismantled. Your people, confined to your system." A soft chime sounded on Vance's console. He glanced at it, then smiled. "Yeah, about that." The Titaness engines flared, not to flee, but to charge. The 𝙎𝙬𝙤 formation tightened, plasma batteries cycling up. Then space rippled. 5 new signatures tore into reality. Not human ships. Not even warships. Mining barges. The Vorn tactical officer snorted. "Are you surrendering your scrap haulers now?" Then the barges detonated. Not explosions. *payload star. A storm of magnetized shrapnel engulfed the lead 𝙎𝙬𝙤 cruiser, shredding its unshielded engines. The Titaness railgun spoke next, punching through the drifting ship's bridge. Corvash screamed orders. "Flank speed. Break formation." Too late. The Titan pivoted, its dorsal cannons locking onto the nearest Vorn cruiser. Garza fired. The shot wasn't a kill. It didn't need to be. The hypervelocity round clipped the cruiser's gravity stabilizer, sending it spiraling into its sister ship. Metal screamed in the void. Vance opened a fleet-wide channel. "This is Captain Elias Vance of the UNSS Titan. You came to teach us a lesson." Static. A dying Vorn cruiser's distress beacon wailed in the background. "Class dismissed." The remaining ships fled.